You are stronger, you are stronger. Sin is broken, you have saved me. It is written, Christ is risen. Jesus, you are Lord of all. No beginning and no end. You're my hope and my defense. You came to seek and save the lost. You paid it all upon the cross.
Now it just seems like the writer of Hebrews is joking, doesn't it? An example of faith? Barak, that guy from Judges 4 who wouldn't go into battle without Deborah? You think we ought to imitate him? Why, yes. Arvy Dupuy is an adjunct instructor at Heritage Christian University. He directs Scope 310, and he runs Liberté Ministries, working in Haiti. In this lesson, he helps us see Barak as an example of faith specifically in his refusal to go into battle without Deborah.
Barak. Why Barak? I mean, of all the people in Hebrews chapter 11, why would I choose him? Honestly, when I sent the reply back, it was almost subconscious. I don't know why I did it. But then I remembered his story. And I remembered, I've got something in common with this guy. See, he had a woman named Deborah in his life. And she was wise. She told him what to do, and it was the right thing to do. And she walked with him and encouraged him while he carried out his mission. I like Barak. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my wife's name is Deborah. And so he and I have a lot in common. Wasn't sure why I chose him, but I'm glad that I did. As I began to study his life, I recognized something about him that I wanted to be more like. Something that I needed more in my life, and I hope you'll say that as well when we finish this study. Barak and Deborah's story, and it is their story, the two cannot be disconnected, begins in Judges chapter 4. We know the story of Judges. The children of Israel are with God and things are well, but they're pulled away by false gods, by foreign people. They end up being oppressed by some foreign power. They're in misery. They cry out to God. God hears their cry. He sends them a deliverer, a judge. They're brought to freedom. Once again, there's peace and prosperity for a time anyway. But they fail to do what we fail to do so often today. And that is to teach the next generation the lessons that we've learned the hard way. And so the pattern repeats itself over and over and over again in the book of Judges. And that's where we are at the midst of another cycle in Judges chapter 4. When Deborah, the prophetess who sits under a tree, summons Barak, the commander of the army. Let's look beginning in verse 6. Now she sent and summoned Barak, the son of Abinoam, from Kadesh Naphtali. From the beginning, I have to acknowledge his response is incredible. In that culture, in that society, he doesn't respond by saying, a woman is telling me to come to her. If she wants to talk to me, she can come see me. I'm the commander of the army. I have thousands of men who answer to my every beck and call. No, she comes to me. There's not even a hint of that. That's a good thing. That's a check in the positive column for him. Continuing in verse 6, she says to him, behold, the Lord, the God of Israel, has commanded, go and march to Mount Tabor, and take with you 10,000 men from the sons of Naphtali, from the sons of Zebulun. I will draw out to you Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his many troops to the river Kishon, and I will give him into your hand. So she tells him what to do. And again, his response is noteworthy. He doesn't push back. He doesn't second guess. He doesn't criticize. He doesn't say, I'll talk to you, but you're not going to tell me what to do. He responds positively. Now, he does reply. Verse 8 tells us that reply. Barak said to her, if you'll go with me, then I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go. There's another check in the positive column for him, another plus. He's willing to listen to wise counsel. Going to war is no small thing. History writes about the winners of war, but there are no winners in any war. And so then, as now, it's not a decision to be made lightly. But his confidence in her counsel was so strong that he obligates himself with his mutual participation. What stands out about the character of Barak is his lack of ego. Let's admit it. Everybody has an ego. Some of us more than others. And men, we have to admit that this is an area where we struggle a lot more than the ladies do. George Meredith said, the stench of the trail of history is ego. Ego, the foundation, cry, origin, sole source of war. Men will wage war for lesser things, but few are so potentially alluring as the fame that might await the winner. And so, he's willing to go to war because fame awaits him. But Deborah tells him plainly from the beginning, it will not be his. Verse 9, she says, I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, the honor shall not be yours on the journey that you're about to take. Now think about it. That could have been a death knell for the entire mission right there. But it wasn't. Maybe he's thinking, okay, I'm not the hero, but one of my lieutenants will be. Maybe my right-hand man, one of my guys, will be the one who saves the day. But Deborah clarifies that, continuing in verse 9. For the Lord will sell Sisera into the hands of a woman. And Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh. Wow. Think about that. Now, he'd already been taking orders from a woman, and that was enough, wasn't it? Now, he's got to fight a fight where the woman's going to get all the glory and the credit. But you know, there's not a hint of him having a problem with that. Nothing is indicated in the text. He seems to be all right with this. He's going along. He maintains this selfless attitude throughout the entire process. Look at verse 14 of Judges chapter 4. Deborah said to Barak, Arise, for this is the day in which the Lord has given Sisera into your hands. Behold, the Lord has gone out before you. So Barak went down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 men, notice what the text says, following him. He was in the lead. He led the charge. The enemy ran and he pursued, verse 16. They pushed them harder and harder, verse 24, until the Canaanite threat was destroyed. Then we get to Judges chapter 5, the victory song. Now finally, this is where the record's going to be set straight. This is where it will be recorded for the annals of history of all time. Who led the charge? Who was out front? Who was in the thick of things? And Deborah is mentioned twice as many times as Barak. The mother of the Canaanite general who lost, who never left her house, gets as much ink as Barak. I don't know about you, but I would demand a rewrite. It isn't fair. He took all the risk. He did all of this, and he gets nothing. His role is diminished. He seems okay with that. He went, he launched the attack. He risked everything for very little reward. Why? Because it was the right thing to do. And because it was what was best for his people. And to get to that end, to that outcome, he had to set aside any ego, any self-serving attitude any bit of pride. That's a powerful example for us today. A lesser man wouldn't have done it. A prideful man would not have stood for that. Pride is a dangerous thing. Every morning, the enemy scatters our pathway with landmines. And if we're not careful where we step and how we walk, we will surely step on one. Pride is one of Satan's chief weapons. He loves for us to take our eyes off of God and others and to focus on ourselves. The landmine of pride can rip a gaping hole in our lives so easily. And because it is so disruptive and destructive to the people that He loves, that's why God leaves no ambiguity about how He feels about pride. Proverbs 8:13, there's a list of sins that God hates. And pride's there, the top. You look up the antonyms for pride and you get words like affable, ashamed, lowly. Barak was none of those. Didn't describe who he was. He was just a guy who was simply devoid of self-promotion. There was a target, there was a mission, there was a job to do. And from the onset, he was focused on the outcome and determined not to get pulled off into the weeds. And there's a lot of weeds in this narrative. Most women who are recorded in Scripture are there because they are married to or related to some great man. And oftentimes, they're pushed to the side in minor supporting roles. Not here. The women are center stage. Barak was good with that, as long as the victory was the outcome. This man who defeated thousands of Canaanite soldiers, 900 chariots, he was content with this watershed moment for Israel, and it was, because from this point forward, the Canaanites never again even attempt to oppress Israel. He was happy for all of this to culminate with domestic weaponry. A tent peg in a woman's hand. And how did she know how to use it so skillfully? Because setting up the tents, that was a woman's work. And Barak was at peace with that. In the end, it was the woman who's blessed. Look at chapter 5, verse 24. Most blessed of women is Jael, the wife of Heber the Canaanite. Most blessed is she of women in the tent. Think about this. He did the work. He took the risk. He did all the heavy lifting. And somebody else had the song sung about them. Somebody else got all the glory and the credit. You ever been there? You ever had that happen to you? You ever done all the heavy lifting at work on a project only to have someone, maybe your boss, come in at the last moment and claim credit? Maybe you've cared for a family member through an extended illness or at the end of their life. And you're the one who's up at night. You're the one worried about paying the bills and shopping and laundry. And some other relative rides in on a white horse towards the end and claims the spotlight for themselves. Maybe for longer than you can remember, you've played the role of peacemaker. In your family, with your friends, with your colleagues, trying to get them to get along, to set aside petty disputes and silly arguments, and your efforts go unrecognized and unappreciated. All of us have had times in our lives when we've done the right thing, just did what we had to do, and somebody else got the spotlight. Somebody else took the credit. And we were pushed to a minor role, if any recognition at all. If you've had that happen to you, if you've been there, then you know the pain of that. And it hurts. It hurts. How'd you handle it? Can we honestly say that we handle it like Barak did? Faith is a hard thing to explain, at least for me. It's a hard thing to kind of wrap your arms around, and it's a difficult thing many times to live out. The Hebrew writer says in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. For by it the men of old gained approval. For by it the men of old gained approval. So what did Barak, this man of old, do to gain approval? What was it that demonstrated this remarkable faith? It was when he made the decision that he refused to make it all about himself. He just did the right thing. Many of you have probably seen the movie The Blind Side. The true story of Michael Orr, young African-American kid from Memphis, Tennessee. He was taken in by the Dupuy family. They adopted him, helped him not only get through high school, but into college at Ole Miss, where he became an All-American in football, was a first-round pick in the NFL draft for the Baltimore Ravens. Sean Dupuy, the dad in that story, speaks at fundraisers, and he told the story once about how all this happened. He said that everything hinged in this story on two words. It was a cold November morning. The movie puts it in the evening or at night, but it actually took place in the morning. And the Dupuy family were riding down the road. It was cold outside, and they saw a young man, Michael Orr, walking down the sidewalk. A pair of shorts and a thin t-shirt, because that's all the clothes that he had. They passed him, and Leanne Dupuy, the mother, looked at her husband, Sean, and said two words: turn around. And they did. They went back, they picked Michael up, they put him in their warm car, they took him home, and everything transpired from that moment. But it all happened because of two words: I will. Two words can change everything. It can change lives, it can change the plight of nations, it can change history. Barak makes the list in Hebrews, along with a list of deliverers of Israel in 1 Samuel chapter 12. I think because of two words. When God, through Deborah, spoke to him and said, this is what I need you to do, he simply said, I will. He didn't allow the background noise, all the things that weren't maybe as it should be because of cultural norms or traditional roles to get in the way. He focused on what had to be done, and he simply said, I will. So let me ask you, what two words have you been needing to say? Sorry. I forgive. I will. I encourage you, be like Barak. Do what's right. And who cares who gets the credit? As long as God gets the glory and His people are blessed. God bless you.
No beginning and no end. You're my hope and my defense. You came to seek and save the lost. You paid it all upon the cross. You are stronger. You are stronger. Sin is broken.